if work is how you make ends meet, how you make a financial living, and you don't need that anymore, you have to either abandon work or you have to redefine what the purpose of work is. Welcome back to the Family Wealth Edge. Vincent, I know that you're struggling out of winter. You're finally into spring. Our visit is coming up, though, and I wonder, do you literally have a pair of shorts? I know as an Italian man, you do not really wear shorts, but you're coming to South Florida to visit our family, and I wonder, have you unpacked from winter your probably one pair of shorts?
Yes, we are on that way too. So the joke that Kristen and I have is that in Italy, in Rome, we're not allowed to wear shorts in the city. But yes, I will have a pair of shorts for our trip down to Florida next week. Looking forward to filming our first in-person The Family Wealth Edge. Kristen, little fun fact for our many, many, many listeners. This is episode 23 of The Family Wealth Edge. Unbelievable already. So thanks to you and to our famous producer, Matt, who refuses to be on camera for these episodes.
Love Matt.
We're on episode 23. What's on your mind today, Kristen, as we record our next episode?
Yeah. So, well, before I share that, what I want to say is that makes me realize if we film 2 episodes when we're in person, we will have our 25th episode filming together while you're here. And we should definitely pop some champagne to
I'm sure.
mark
I'm sure.
the occasion, I think. That's
Sounds
awesome.
like a plan.
It's been an adventure. But what's on my mind today is I've had some coaching clients and just really been reflecting on the idea that for those people who do not have to work because they have enough financial resources in a trust or what have you, whether it's leading gen has, started a business and sold it and now has resources, or whether it's a next gen who has a trust. Maybe it's a spouse has, a successful business. And so it means that they don't necessarily have to work. This seems like a great thing, right? But I think it adds the paradox of comfort into the mix. We had an episode where we talked about the paradox of choice. But for this, it's the paradox of comfort, where it seems like it would be great to not have to work. But in a world where I keep hearing in the news, like, what is the world going to be like when AI takes all of our jobs and we won't need to work? Like, it will be amazing. And like, also maybe a problem. In my head, I'm always thinking for us, we kind of deal with this already. Like, there's just kind of a map for this and how we're coaching our clients who don't have to work through this, that it is important to not just toss back into the couch, because that can lead to some problems. So just wanted to hear from you. What are your thoughts about kind of the costs of not needing to work, and
Yeah.
dive into that a bit?
Like everything, there's extremes on both ends. I think it's what I love about this quick conversation is a lot of themes we're pulling in from previous conversations. And we use very simple language here on the Family Wealth Edge. But in ancient times, a couple of decades ago, people's purpose and why really came through their work. Spiritual capital is a thing that we talked about in the past. Like, who am I and what do I want to do? And a lot of us take a lot of great pride in our work. And I think that if a situation that you find yourself in that you don't need to work, or in the not too distant future, AI is thrust upon us and forces us all into our couch, I think the downside of not having or not finding your purpose through work, and work can be anything. It can be creative, it can be technology, it can be business, wherever you find yourself being pulled towards. But I think not having that necessity to do something every day can lead to a lot of downside risk for the individual. What do I mean by that? We see a lot of anxiety and lack of confidence, that people that don't have a purpose or don't have especially through work. I even see a lot of a lack of self-pride. If I don't
Mm,
know, I don't have a purpose to do something every day, to create something, and a lot, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be financial wealth. A job can be anything that you focus on that builds something. Could be an idea, a conversation. So I don't want listeners to think, oh, I have to generate wealth in order to feel purpose. That's not part of our
mhm,
conversation. I think work is something that we focus on, that we work at to get better at. Um, but I think that downside risk of people not having to do something can lead to some of those things that we mentioned.
mhm.
What are you seeing with some of your clients?
Yeah, all of that on the mental health side of it, the anxiety, the depression, um I guess the wandering around and feeling like you don't have a strong sense of who you are in the middle of that. It as you were talking though, it reminded me too of the exact same struggle that people encounter on the other side of retirement, where
Yeah.
they have lost that piece of their identity that is tied into, well, what do you do? And that causes us to have to redefine what work is. So if work is how you make ends meet, how you make a financial living, and you don't need that anymore, you have to either abandon work or you have to redefine what the purpose of work is. And so I think what you're speaking to is the idea that the purpose of work can be the way that I make meaning and purpose and impact in the world. And then the avenues really open up, right? So then it could be, I'm on 2 boards and play a really extensive role in these nonprofits that I care deeply about. That's work. It doesn't necessarily mean that work only has to pay the bills, has to provide income. I suppose that it also could be, the contribution that you're making in your family office, family enterprise, right? If you stepped into like an education role with your 16 cousins, that very much could be work. And I think it's just making a redefinition of work to be the way that you make meaning, purpose, and impact in the world. What do you think of my definition that I've just crafted at the moment here?
Really in depth. And I think this also ties back into another episode that we talked about real responsibility, right? So
Mhm.
now, if I don't need to work for financial reasons because I've had that grace, and or in our my language, there's no need to work, so there's no need to assume a level of responsibility. That's great for a certain period of time. I know I foregoed a lot of responsibility in my 20s, and then a life event happens, and then all of a sudden you're thrust into a situation where you have to work or you have to take on responsibility of whatever that is, family office. I know a parent passes and responsibility shifts to you, and you haven't had reps in, you haven't had
Mm.
you need to actually test yourself, fail fast, fail forward, and then boom, life happens because it always does. And we haven't allowed ourselves the time in the game, whether it's work
Mhm.
something or taking on some level of responsibility. And then we're thrust into an environment that we're not prepared for. And that can lead to a whole other set of issues and compound the already lack of self confidence or anxiety or lack of purpose individuals may have with going down that path of not needing to work.
Yeah, that would be too tough a transition, I think, if you just in the same way that lifestyle creep can kind of be a slide, I think the resilience and grit that comes from waking up every day and doing a thing and working hard at it. When you get to a place, if you haven't been doing that for a decade, mom and dad pass, and you're coming into having to step into those responsibilities and just really gear up in the pace of life, I can see where that would be really challenging. You wouldn't have
As
the resources you need.
as you're speaking, what's coming up for me again with this idea of work and responsibility is the need, the skill to make decisions. Right. So like if we don't have to work, it's almost like you're foregoing your need to make decisions for yourself. And then
Mhm.
something happens in the future, and now all of a sudden we're in a position that we need to make decisions, but we've never had to, whether it's in a job or any format of life, that can compound into a very slippery slope. And
Yeah.
then what I've seen recently too is this lack of need. I don't have to work because the family has excess resources. And then all of a sudden now you find yourself in your early 30s and they go, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? Then they start to chase or try to emulate mom and dad's path. So they try
Mm.
to into their definition of success or their idea of work, which can, and you've heard me say this at nauseum, which will eventually lead you to hitting a wall.
'Cause it's
Some
not yours. Is that
It's
what you
not
mean? Yeah.
yours. Yeah, you have
Mhm.
to own own your
Yeah.
decisions, own your life. So I think even on a podcast previously, we talked about this on the paradox of choice. The
Mhm.
great opportunity rising gens have that are in these financially complex families is the opportunity to design their life. And that in itself is a job, is to
Yeah.
actually sit down and focus on who am I? How do I want to show up? and what is the impact I want to make for myself, my community, my family, that can be a job. I think
Mhm.
going that responsibility, that's where we see family wealth dissipate through generations when the next generation coming up doesn't have that. I don't even want to say work ethic, doesn't have that purpose
Drive.
and
Yeah,
drive.
mhm.
The
Yeah,
idea
and
to
it
do
doesn't have to be a drive to, I don't know, I feel like sometimes you see a little bit of a pendulum swing if you've got a leading generation family member that's working 68 or 80 hours a week, does not have a lot of life balance, maybe didn't prioritize family relationships over, business success. I think sometimes you see the pendulum swing where the next generation is like, that's not going to be me. I'm going to have more balance. I'm going to prioritize my family. But as often happens, the pendulum will swing too far in the other direction. And there's, less of a sense of responsibility showing up. And I think the risk of that to real responsibility, which I attribute this phrase with you now,
Mm.
Vincent, the risk to that is that I don't know, are they going to be ready to step into those roles? If you're not, it's small things that you can gain from the work environment, whatever that is, even if you're on a board of a nonprofit, it's like learning how to play well together, make decisions well together in groups. If you haven't learned that skill, the family business then, sometimes it's dad or mom, sometimes it's a family business board is looking at you and going like, not ready because you haven't really had time in the seat, not even just not in our industry, but in the work world in general, making decisions alongside other people. And so this is like, if you're thinking about my plan for my life, designing my life should include opportunities to experience real responsibility, even outside of the family enterprise, to prepare you for whatever's down the road.
Amazing. The world is only as big as you make it, is what I heard you say.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
don't step out of your world, how do you know what's there? And again,
Hmm.
on the surface level, it sounds wonderful. Oh, you don't need to work. Great. But what I think the benefit and the burden that we have is that we get to this opportunity to work with all kinds of different folks at different phases of their life. And what I would say almost 100% rate as they get older into their 40s and 50s, if they haven't had an opportunity to self-actualize, find
Hmm.
their purpose. When you get to that stage of your life, the downside risks are really, really high for the individual and for the
Yeah.
family at large. And that's where I think all the studies about wealth dissipating over generations, from my experience doing this for a while, I can almost point my finger and say,
Yeah. Hmm.
50-year-old hasn't had an opportunity that's only been in one path can usually lead to a lot of different problems at that stage of their career.
Well, I'm imagining someone who's listening who's like, oh, snap, that's me. I think I need to get back in the game. I almost want to give an assignment.
Uh,
So I wonder if we can be coaches and come up with like 5 questions. So I'm going to do the first ones, which are the easy ones.
Put me on the spot.
Um,
Okay.
and then I'm going to leave the hard ones with you. So, what is work? The first
Yeah.
question, like to you as an individual, listeners out there, how do
Mm.
you define work? And then the next question, what is the impact of work or the outcome of work for me? Like, what is work meant to accomplish in my life and sort of like the benefits of it? What else
Sure.
do you have, Vincent? Any other questions to add to the mix?
Well, we're playing with the designing your life here because I think in the
Mm-hmm.
first pages, there's why work as well. So there's what is
Mm-hmm.
work, what is the impact you want to do through your work, but then why work? Why is working important for you? I
Mm-hmm.
That's another question that people can help themselves muddle through. Why work? There's
Mm-hmm.
we got 2 more, Kristen. I'm gonna give you one. I'll give you 4, and then I'll think of 5.
Okay. While you're thinking of 5, what came to mind is, and this is typically where I'm going in coaching, to help people to tap into who they are. I think it's always surprises me how rare it is that when I say to someone like, "Have you done an assessment before to really find out about, what your top strengths are? Have you done Clifton Strengths or whatever?" Very few people have actually done that. So I think just a question that would ask them, what are your strengths? Like, what are the unique contributions that you have to make in the world? And that's going to differ vastly for each person. But if someone understands, like, I'm a really great connector, I'm really good at empathy, I'm really good at numbers, just knowing that can help inform what unique contribution that you could be making in the community, in your family, in the workplace.
And then number five would be really getting clear on what does success mean to you. Not
Mm.
only really define what success means for yourself with respect to your work, your family, your friends, your interactions. Really get clear on what does success look like. And I think so for those folks that are stuck, there's 5 questions frameworks that can help you hopefully get a little clearer on what to do next.
And then don't let perfect be the enemy of good, because I think that last question that you added into the mix can allow people to just get in the game, just go try something. And then you can ask yourself, does this align with my strengths? Is it accomplishing what I hope work will accomplish in my life? Am I seeing some of the outcomes from it that I'm hoping to see? And if that's not the case, no worries. You pivot and move into a different direction and sort of like keep the experiment going.
Episode 23, Kristen. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Another episode of the Family Wealth Edge.
Bye.